How's it going?
Barrett gave me a call, and he's still
Barrett
freaking
or
out.
Barrick? Oh, Barrett. Yes.
Barrett. Yep. I told him that I have no problem giving him money. Because like they can't even pay their people, and I said, you know,
We're paying their people though.
huh?
I mean, what? Do you not like on the sliders? We paid the marshals.
Oh, I don't have that slider.
Oh, is that just?
No,
Am I
I'm
the
just
one
kidding.
doing
I'm
that?
kidding. I'm kidding.
Okay,
No.
okay. Well, I'm paying DOC just by myself, and that's too much.
That they should be. So, an argument.
Yeah, Murray said he's not reimbursing that anymore.
Murray's
He
a
reached
dumb
out to
fuck.
the
I hope he
state.
dies. Sorry, that was too much.
No, that's fine.
I'll tell you why it annoys me, because they sat in front of the governor saying that they could. You remember, you know, they're like, oh, we can be impartial, and the first chance they got, they like cut everyone off. Like, you know what I mean? It just makes me think like, man, they were snaking so hard, and then the moment they had an opportunity, they took the mask off.
That feels malicious because, you know, if like I'm perfectly, you know, if I had money as Blaine County, I would be perfectly happy to pay for DOC and marshals because they're important and they're, you know, state necessities, right?
Agreed.
But the
Exactly.
actual state officials, the DOJ, is like, well, we're not going to pay for them because we don't have control over them anymore.
You know what's funny?
Like, I don't have control over them, but I'm still paying them.
Constitutionally, they're still responsible.
Oh God.
Yep. So it's gonna get real spicy.
Yeah.
But what I told Barrett is like, because first he was like, oh, reduce the charge down to 50,000 so they can file them easier and and I'm like, no, we got to do this sensibly. Nobody knows what's gonna happen, what the state's eventually gonna come with. So I asked him to make a request to all authorities. I will help fund it. I recommend that you fund it. I know you don't have a lot of money. I'm not suggesting you do an equal portion.
Time being.
Yeah, like a little bit. You know what I mean? Just as like a sign. Like I'll give them. Like if I do 3 million,
Nino,
do like
Nino,
100,000. You know what I mean?
Nino, Duncan's pulling me over because I didn't pay the meter in Los Santos County. Can you give me a pass for the $5 so Duncan doesn't pull me over for not paying your meter?
He can't. I don't think that's a charge.
It's not a charge, Duncan. I'm gonna run you over.
And neither are handicap things.
Yep.
Because we don't have that. Yep.
Oh.
I
gotta go, Duncan.
Yep.
He
So
asked me how long I'm gonna be on the phone, so I just drove away.
Oh. He would
I also realized that you
good.
called me and I left the food court after paying for my food, but I didn't actually get my food, so.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm frazzled, you know?
The second thing I wanted to bring up,
Make Kyle Pratt the sheriff.
wait, how'd you know?
Because Kyle Pratt texted me and said, I want to be the sheriff. And I was like, that was out of nowhere. You talked to Nino, didn't you?
He did.
Yeah, I figured.
I gave him a dad speech. I told him the problem with Pred is he's like a kid at the candy store and he wants all the candy, right? And I've known him for a while. It's just
and
one of his.
And he thinks he deserves all the candy.
That is true. And what I told him was, you went into that meeting and you presented a pretty good case. But then you're like, but I'd rather be director. And I was like, who in the right mind is going to make someone the sheriff when they're already eyeballing a different position? That's insane.
Well,
right?
I appreciated that he said that, you know, if he committed to sheriff and then was offered marshal director, he wouldn't take it because he already committed.
Yeah.
Like that meant something to me. I didn't see that as the big issue with Kyle.
Well,
I think that he's great.
Yeah.
I think he would make a great sheriff, but I mean, to some extent, I feel like he's already done it.
That's very fair, to be honest. And other people need an opportunity.
Yeah, and I don't want to be like, oh, you know, participation award, like I just want to give more people a chance. But, you know, if we're talking about a shakeup and everyone says BCSL needs a shakeup, Kyle Pratt is arguably not so much of a shakeup, but a shake back. I mean, it's happened before, right? Like he's been sheriff before, and I want to see what someone new can do, but I also want to see I think that a shakeup doesn't necessarily have to be, new sheriff in town, moves everyone back down to deputy, revamps SOPs, and then picks their own high command, right? That's a shakeup, sure, but it's a very simple shakeup. I think that
Mm.
a more interesting shakeup would be, I've talked to a couple of the candidates about the castle court idea, having jury trials for things. Even having. I want to talk to Barrett about this, but he had an idea a while back of a bunch of, you know, individual like little mini police forces for each area of Blaine County. All run under BCSO, but they would have
Mm.
like jurisdiction over their own independent little
Oh my
areas.
God, that would be so sick.
With less, less significant force because it's just small stuff.
Sure.
Or you know what? Hey, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. I know I say it as a joke sometimes, but what would be a real shakeup would be just replacing everyone's guns with swords.
I've got some wild ideas as well. I'll throw out there. First, to address what you said before, I don't disagree with the feeling of like it would be a shakeback. I do think it's important that
Something has to change. I'm aware of that,
yeah,
and significantly.
I look at the candidates, and I want to preface this by saying like I know you're not going to get what's the word I'm looking for? I've been thinking about it too. Like, part of me is like McNulty. He's great. But you know what I can't shake? Is
What?
that the last time he wanted to be chief of police, he told me he didn't want high command. And then one day he goes, I want chief of police. Because he was afraid that change was going to happen. And there's like a piece of me that's in the back of my mind where I'm like, what if he's worried things are going to change and he won't be able to patrol? And that's why he wants sheriff. Which is when I'm like, a Ruby McNulty under sheriff would kind of go hot. But you're going to get a lot of vanilla, right?
Yeah, that's the concern.
Yeah.
I mean, I think McNulty has applied for sheriff for the past 3 terms. He's been interested in the position, and I think it's because he thinks that there needs to be some change. He thinks that he seems very he's in favor of the idea of like, I wanted to run Castle Court by him, not because I think it's an absolute necessity, but because I wanted to see his response. Because I'll tell you that Aspen immediately was like, "This isn't a game. We can't do something like that. I'm not gonna allow you to, whatever. Like you can't, uh, you know, mess with BCSO's pay and all that stuff." And she is so focused internally on BCSO's morale. And that was what was needed, I guess, when Mumbles was picking the sheriff, because he was picking after Kyle Pred had essentially gutted the department and started paying them nothing and no one was waking up. So they needed someone who would bring them vibes, who would make them feel good.
That's kind of
But now they feel too good.
But he never did. He increased their pay.
Their pay was at nothing.
No, I know. He brought it to $1,500, and then on the weekends he was paying $3,500.
Yeah, I think they were upset
because
they were upset because he was, yelling at them all the time, which is understandable.
God. Yeah.
But again, I think also they tend to, the kids say doom spiral.
Yeah.
BCSO has a tendency to say, we think this guy's going to be bad, so we're going to essentially turn him into the villain. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Even if he's not as bad as we think, we're going to just see him as bad, and everything that he does is going to seem antagonistic and stuff like that.
The gang members. I mean, it's how they.
Yeah.
I'm expecting that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think though that it's I want them to enjoy themselves. I want them to be a legitimate police department where they actually have, like they follow SOPs and they don't violate anyone's rights and there's accountability. I don't want them to be a military. I don't want them to be, all walking in line in the exact same outfit and stuff like that. But I think that Aspen was certainly too lax about certain things. Everything kind of. Her interview was,
Almost done.
it said a lot.
It's so secret.
There was no, like, if I wasn't sure beforehand, there's no way I'm making her sheriff again.
Yeah.
Which I was pretty sure beforehand, but she treated it like an exit interview and then texted me afterwards being like, you know, having a bunch of people at the interview who hate BCSO was definitely a choice. Congrats on mayor, though.
Oh, what? Here's
like,
the
you know,
thing.
The thing is, the only person there who outwardly hates BCSO is Kyle Pratt. Everyone else there was just people that I thought they are going to have to deal with BCSO, and so their perspective matters. People on the criminal side of things, people in LSPD, people in BCSO, people in the judicial system. I invited mostly neutral parties, but they wanted, but apparently Aspen saw that as a direct attack.
That is, I mean, I'm gonna just say it how I see it. There's elements, and this exists in LSPD as well, mind you, that believe that the entire county is their subservient. And even the mentality of like, how do the vibes feel in the department? How do we, that makes sense if you're the actual victim. But these are law enforcement officers that detain, arrest, did not by themselves start questioning, man, are we putting people in for too long? Are we putting people into debt? Is that a problem? But instead,
they're meant to be public servants.
Exactly. Now, if for example, there was elements within there that were like, man, these penal codes are too high or whatever, I would have some sympathy, right? And I'm going to even go as far as saying this is why between us, like even Maxwell's got those traits where, you know, where there's issues and she's immediately in defense of her officers beyond what is reasonable, right? And if it wasn't for someone like Turner, I think, oh God, I'm falling through the realms. I don't think that accountability would fully be there, right? It's a hard balance. Can I propose something? And maybe this is a little bit too early. We talked about a singular. No.
Oh, okay.
Why do you, okay. Okay, now this is funny because now what I'm about to say is going to sound like something along those lines.
Okay.
We've talked about a singular county. I don't think we're
unite the counties.
Kind of. I think we should play around with the idea. I think after you pick a sheriff, I think it's fair to say that I want to see a little spice. I'm sure you want to see a little bit of spice. But the reality is we're also dealing with a lot of
Kyle Pratt to the interviews.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, but at the reality is there's a lot of instability right now. So even spice is like a scary thought, right? Well, the DOJ's fucked up. Well, there's all this other bull. Why don't we make after all this is done and done, why don't we take joint custody of a third police station?
How did you know that's what I was gonna? You know, I texted that to Kyle when he said that I should make him sheriff. I said,
really?
Tell Nino to make a third police department because I've been wanting to do that, but Blaine County doesn't have enough people to warrant.
Oh, interesting.
100%. I think that there should be a third police department.
I've been thinking about this the last couple hours about like a joint police department. Now, the intent is it's a tiebreaker. And because it can be as big or as small as we want it, it could be more interesting while the others can deal with the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost like, think of it as like a test experiment. You know what I mean? And if it sucks, we just delete it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
But I do think, I'm gonna, you know, and I'm not holding this over you, right? I think that the police department, I think that sounds like a great idea. And in that case, I would want to have like the more legitimate, you know, maybe serious sheriff pick for the middle department, but then maybe give, you know, give Kyle Pratt or Peters a department that's a little bit more off in the edges. Maybe.
Yeah.
like a. But I don't know if maybe that's
who
the
knows?
middle one should be the whatever one. But
I don't
I
think
also
that.
do want to talk about the potential. We haven't had the conversation about the borders yet, about the lines and stuff.
Oh, true. Yeah, we
And I
can
would like
open that
to
up.
talk about that at some point.
Yeah.
Even if it, I mean, uniting the counties is one thing. I think that uh, I am pro uniting the counties in certain ways. I will always stand up for the needs of Blaine County because I
Yeah.
think that it's important that someone represents those needs, regardless of you know whether they're a separate county or whether it's just a little region in the county. I think that Blaine County deserves more care. Uh, but I do also think that there's space for changes in borders. Uh,
Mm.
at least because I it confuses me that I'm not representing Shumash because I feel like I accidentally am. Like when I
Mm.
speak, I am representing Blaine County, and I just happen to also be representing the needs of Shumash because they share the needs of Blaine County.
Yeah, absolutely. I am open to those conversations. I think I did have that conversation with Pred, so I'm definitely open to the idea. Um,
Where would you want that middle police station?
I think I want it. I don't want to go too deep on it because I don't want it to
Okay.
influence your decision with BCSO. So even having said that, I think it's important. We should assume that any of these like joint efforts, which I think we should do, because I think it would be interesting, and bring spice without risk.
It's a shakeup.
Right? And like I said, it's the worst case scenario, you delete it. So BCSO has got to be like, treat it like we're not doing it, right? Obviously. Okay. And then after the fact, we can discuss those kind of things. And maybe more of these joint efforts, because I do think in the grand scheme of things, unifying the counties might be difficult. So why not unify them in that sort of fashion instead? So where there's joint initiatives as opposed to trying to combine both. Because even if that's what everyone wants, I just don't know how the state's going to feel about it. You know what I mean?
No, I totally agree with that. I think that also part of the issue is just the money thing. Like, I just
don't worry about money. I mean, we got plenty. Like, I'm not like pressed on,
I know you're not.
Well, I'm saying I'm not pressed about it because if it becomes a money issue, Los Santos County can, the same thing with the Marshall thing. Like,
but you see,
that's
what I'm saying about the unification of the counties, because the whole point of separating them was that Blaine County was getting forgotten, and so they needed their own, representation. But now, because Blaine County is represented, but doesn't have any money to back that up, it's still kind of the same thing. And so when I say, unification, it doesn't have to be that counties are actually unified, but rather, I think it's important to, that's why I'm doing this whole roundtable thing. I want to have representatives of each individual region to come to me and say, okay, this is what we need here. This is our issue currently. And I'm happy to be the representative of Blaine County in any sort of form, right? If that means that there's one county, and let's say, and I know this isn't going to sound good for you because you're the one that you're the haves, the haves, not the haves not.
Yeah.
But if you were like, yeah, I'm the mayor of the whole state, and I were to say, as representative of Blaine County, I would like to request this much money for this thing, so that we can give infrastructure to Blaine County or infrastructure to Grapeseed or Polito or something. And then
you're talking about a representative democracy.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, I don't think that's a wrong thing. I think that's probably what needs to happen because, look, in my end of my first term, beginning of my second term, I wanted Cypress. I wanted what I called Los Santos Central, South Side, etc. I wanted districts. The reason it didn't end up happening, and this is a reality that we face.
Too complicated?
Princess, there's like, I think only 10 people in the city actually care about politics.
Yeah.
That is the sad reality. They're just, we've driven out the, a lot of people, there's not enough people interested in, I mean, look at the latest elections. I mean, there's like, you know, so even though I love the idea, I would love that. I just don't know if there's enough people. You know what I mean? Like
That's why I think it makes sense to have maybe larger regions, you know, and like for me, you know, when I'm currently gathering nominations for representatives, and they don't need to be as into politics as I am. I have a whole email chain for my representatives for the round table, and so the person who represents Polito just has to do what they usually do, talk to people from Polito. But then, you know, if they have like an issue and they're saying, "Hey, we've got this group that keeps coming into Polito and burning houses down," then they can,
you know what?
you know, just put that on the email, and then I'll be like, "Okay, let me handle that," because now I know.
You're right. You're right.
They just need to present issues.
Hey, I am down for this kind of thing. Once again, the money thing is less of my concern. I think you have worked with us very diligently. That's always been my biggest thing is like, as a person managing the Los Santos County budget, I don't mind spending it as long as I feel like the people are benefiting. And so if it benefits the people, then, you know, it's, I'm going to, you know, redirect it. Just keep in mind, we have 120 million, not 4 whatever, because I owe the state.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I owe the state 270 million for Court Center and God knows what else.
270? Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
Suddenly I feel way less bad about buying the castle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, I don't, you know, it's one of those, listen,
I get
the governor trolls me, so I might wake up and I might have 0 tomorrow.
Oh, lovely.
But,
that's, you know what? As someone born in monarchy, sounds like my kind of government.
Yep. Okay. Easy. Well, I'll let you do your thing.
We are feudal lords. That's all we are, Nino.
I fuck with it. Hey, whenever you're done with the, you know, with the whole Blaine County thing, let's spice some things up. Joint, whatever, whether it's a joint PD, whatever it is, let's try some initiatives. I think the city needs something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
sure.
All right, easy.
Sounds good to me. All right.
All right. You take care, Princess. All right.
You too. Toodaloo.
I was talking to Princess about a potential 3rd police station. Joint custody.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting idea.
I was sort of cooking on it, like